This was the world's first intermittent car windshield wiper, and the inventor was actually a university professor. Ford Motor Company had poured in massive funds and a team of over 100 engineers, but after 2 years, they still hadn't solved the problem. Seeing the intermittent wipers before their eyes, Ford's engineers were stunned. They suspected that Bob was manually operating them from inside the car. Bob stepped out and demonstrated it right in front of the engineers. Ford's team was convinced. They were very interested in the intermittent wipers, but before moving forward with any partnership, the wipers had to go through sufficient real-world testing. From then on, Bob and his family prayed every day for it to rain soon. Finally, one day, a heavy rain came. The whole family piled into the car. The wipers started cheerfully moving back and forth, even adjusting to different speeds. Bob had finally succeeded. After passing the test, Ford Company asked Bob for a sample to install in their cars for compatibility testing. Bob figured a big corporation wouldn't go back on their word, and he had already filed for the relevant patents, so he agreed. But after handing over the sample, Bob never heard from Ford again. It wasn't until 3 months later that a friend found Bob and told him Ford was no longer interested in the intermittent wipers. Bob was furious. He knew Ford had lured him in and looked at his design, but there was nothing he could do about it. He could only go back to teaching at the university. 18 months later, on a rainy day, Bob saw Ford's new cars on the road. To his shock, they had intermittent wipers installed. Suspecting Ford had stolen his design, he followed the cars to Ford's new vehicle launch event. The host was introducing Ford's new models, with the intermittent wipers being the biggest selling point. The whole audience applauded and cheered. Bob looked under the hood. Weren't those the exact components he had invented? The audacity of Ford. Bob was livid. He was ready to confront the person in charge but got kicked out by security. Bob decided he was going to sue Ford, but that was easier said than done. First, he had no evidence. What's more, Ford had already greased some palms at the patent office and filed their own patent. Bob's patent was completely ignored. His friend advised him to calm down, and even his lawyer told him to give up. How could one man's time and money compete with a giant corporation's? But how could Bob swallow this injustice? He started running around everywhere seeking help. Before he could win the lawsuit against Ford, Bob had a mental breakdown and was locked up in a medical facility. He wasn't released until he agreed not to appeal. Bob went home, deciding to just live a peaceful life with his family. Then suddenly one day, Ford reached out to Bob directly. They were willing to pay $250,000 to settle with him, on the condition that he dropped the matter entirely. But Bob's bottom line was that Ford had to admit the intermittent wipers were his invention. His wife urged him to accept Ford's settlement. After all, money was the most important thing for the family's livelihood right now. She even threatened to separate from him. His lawyer also dropped the case. Bob was caught between a rock and a hard place, but he didn't give up. He started researching relevant case studies and studying legal knowledge. 4 years later, he finally got his day in court. Ford sent people over again, upping their settlement offer to $1 million. Bob shut the door in their faces. "See you in court," he said.